He is recognized as a pervert throughout Japan. Anyone he sets his eyes on, whether old or young, male or female, alive or dead, sometimes even the dead excite him more. However, he always manages to escape the law's punishment, continuing his crimes, all because he has a wealthy father. Having such a son was truly a headache, and his father was driven to death by him. The pervert inherited his father's vast fortune. Japan's only condition for him was that he could never return to the country. So, he began traveling the world. Whether Asians, Europeans, Africans, or Americans, all fell victim to his evil deeds. Eventually, the living could no longer satisfy his needs, and he began to target diseased corpses, even taking a big bite when excited. The programmer's name is Nichikawa, just turned. This time, he set his sights on a Japanese doctor's wife. After his men subdued the doctor's wife, Nichikawa swaggered into the room. He not only assaulted the doctor's wife but also dragged the doctor over to watch. No man could endure such a situation. However, the doctor's resistance was met with a brutal beating from his men, and he had a leg broken with a kick. After his men held the doctor at gunpoint, Nichikawa directly twisted the wife's neck and forced a pot of raw liquor down the doctor's throat. Afterward, Nichikawa fiercely kicked the doctor's face. This not only disfigured him but also left him permanently blind in one eye. To show his arrogance, Nichikawa didn't take the doctor's life but instead dared him to seek revenge if he could. However, what Nichikawa didn't know was that this decision planted the seed of his downfall. The crippled doctor considered jumping to his death, but the thought of revenge on Nichikawa stopped him. But that was easier said than done. Nichikawa was surrounded by bodyguards 24/7, and his residence was like an impregnable fortress. Not even a fly could get in, let alone a crippled doctor. But as they say, there's always a way. The doctor discovered a place called the Cannon House. Don't doubt yourself. This is the place you imagined in your mind. It's a gathering place for perverts worldwide. Nichikawa is a super VIP here. The Cannon House is built on a nuclear waste site. Not only are there no residents nearby, but it's also outside government jurisdiction. No one's bodyguards are allowed to enter. They are also not allowed to carry any weapons and must undergo a strict physical examination. This is definitely a good place to take revenge on the Japanese. But how to sneak into the artillery room? That day, the doctor found a human trafficker. The doctor's wife was brutally murdered, and he himself was beaten into a cripple by a pervert. For revenge, the doctor found the trafficker and bought a Japanese woman named No Skirt. Skirt was originally an American girl, but due to poor choices in friends, her first boyfriend taught her to smoke and drink, her second boyfriend led her astray, and her third boyfriend got her addicted to drugs. To get enough drugs, she became a commodity that could be sold at will. The doctor took her to an abandoned warehouse. He wanted to train her into a perfect killer. The first step was to help her quit drugs. Skirt was tied to a pillar. Whenever she had a craving, no matter how much she screamed, the doctor wouldn't take a step forward. After Skirt calmed down, the doctor would cook her a bowl of porridge. If Skirt knocked over the porridge, then not only would she not have anything to eat, but she would also be doused with ice water. After a period of time, Skirt really did quit her addiction. She started to be willing to eat the doctor's food. But why does your expression remind me of a Trensu commercial? Next, the doctor began a devilish training regimen. Dragging 2 tires for 31 miles was just the daily warm-up, and the training required at least 6 sit-ups every day. Not only did she have to practice boxing against tires, but she also had to spar with professional fighters. But at this time, no matter how hard Skirt tried, she couldn't even touch a hair of the expert. For climbing practice, there was only one rope, and if she ran out of strength, below was a bottomless abyss. After some time of training, she showed significant improvement. She could run fast while pulling 4 tires. She could easily do 1,000 sit-ups. Her punches were getting stronger and stronger. The doctor, with his cane, couldn't even get close to her. In matches against professional fighters, she could also gain an absolute advantage. Seeing that the training had been effective, the doctor gave the fighter a lot of money. However, to avoid future trouble, he shot the fighter. Next, it was about training her courage, so she wouldn't fear bullets. Skirt was tied to a tire. The doctor found a drunk woman and had her fire 3 shots at Skirt. Luckily, not a single shot hit. To use a gun, you must first get familiar with it, starting with the basics of loading. Soon, he could load quickly. After a few days of training, he could disassemble and assemble a handgun in under 10 seconds. Next was shooting practice. From initially being afraid to shoot, he not only overcame his fear but could also shoot quickly and counterattack. Once everything was ready, the doctor laid out his entire plan. If the operation succeeded, Skirt could gain a new identity and start a new life. If it failed, there was only a dead end. The doctor had already bribed the mortuary body supplier. At that time, Skirt would enter the mortuary in a state of feigned death. As for how many people were inside the mortuary and what kind of weapons they had, the doctor knew nothing. At that time, Skirt would have to rely entirely on herself. The weapon had to be disassembled and hidden inside Skirt's body, which was the only way to bring it in. A magazine held only 13 bullets, and Skirt had to complete the mission with just these. The wounds from hiding the weapon wouldn't be fatal. Based on Skirt's height and weight, The doctor calculated that as long as within 2 minutes, bleeding was stopped and blood transfusion was done, Skirt wouldn't be in life-threatening danger. At that time, her friends would be outside the mortuary to assist, with emergency blood transfusion equipment in the car. To give Skirt a more direct understanding, the doctor specifically brought a woman with similar height and weight to Skirt for a demonstration. The doctor made 2 large cuts on the woman and, while timing, explained to Skirt what would happen. After 10 minutes, the body's volume would decrease, the brain would lack blood, and it would feel like being drunk or dreaming, unable to distinguish reality from illusion. But you must ensure that after 15 minutes, your vision will become intermittent. At this time, you need to learn to use other senses, just in time for the second minute. The woman lay dead on the ground. This whole process nearly drove Skirt insane. The doctor was simply a madman. The two then started fighting. The doctor only regretted that she wasn't a woman. Otherwise, he wouldn't have trained Skirt to help with revenge. Then the two engaged in a wild brawl, and at this moment, Skirt grabbed the gun on the table. He initially intended to shoot himself, then turned the gun on the doctor. The doctor also noticed Skirt's actions. He took out a photo of his wife and told Quincy about the situation at that time. Quincy was moved by the doctor's spirit and decided to help him get revenge. Quincy lay naked on the bed. The doctor first made 2 marks on his body with a pen and wrapped the gun parts in plastic wrap. The gun was divided into 3 parts. 1 hidden in the chest, 1 in the abdomen, and where was the other part hidden? You'll have to guess that. After treating the wounds, the doctor gave him an injection to put him in a state of suspended animation. The next day, Quincy was sent into the artillery room. After the staff left the room, he suddenly woke up, saw the security guard outside the door, rushed up, and gave him a beating, quickly grabbing the guard's gun. When he fired the gun, he realized it needed a fingerprint to unlock. He decided to quickly disassemble the pistol and charged at the guard. With his professional training, he quickly dealt with the guard. Quincy took the guard's watch, set the countdown, and then opened the stitches on his body. At this point, the person in charge sensed something was wrong, first inviting Nichikawa into a small room and giving him a small knife. Then, the person in charge called for reinforcements outside. After Quincy assembled the gun, a female security guard had already arrived. Quincy fired continuously at the female guard. However, the opponent was wearing a bulletproof vest, and the first 7 bullets did no harm. It wasn't until the 8th shot that he took her down, and Quincy walked out of the small room. 15 minutes had already passed. The doctor, observing from outside, noticed the reinforcements and shot the driver's head directly. Then, a firefight broke out between the 2 sides. At this time, a fully armed manager approached Quincy from behind. Quincy fired 4 shots at him, but he was unharmed. Nichikawa hid in the room, counting the gunshots. Kunz's last shot went into the opponent's gun barrel, causing the gun to explode, killing the person instantly. Then, Nichikawa came in, knowing Quincy was out of bullets, and threw the small knife in his hand directly. Just as he was about to move forward to enjoy his victory, Quincy opened his mouth, revealing a bullet placed there by the doctor. He loaded it and shot Nichikawa directly. By this time, 20 minutes had passed. Quincy walked out of the room, holding Nichikawa's head high. The doctor was lying on the ground, already dead. It was only then that the doctor's friend arrived, too late. And successfully. For the movie, Blood for the Skirt, the entire team embraced a new identity and started a new life. The movie, Female Body Rush, ends here. This film tells us that as long as we work hard, even a loser can make a comeback. Enough said, I'm off to work hard now. Alright, if you want to see more great movie reviews, please follow me. Bye bye.